Please like and subscribe if you learn something. Plot. Yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to our minds as ours are to those of the beasts that perish. Intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. H. G. Wells. 1898. The War of the Worlds. The Coming of the Martians. First Martian emerging from the cylinder that had fallen from the sky. Illustration by Henrique Alvim Correa. The novel opens in the mid-1890s, with aliens on Mars plotting an invasion of Earth after consuming the natural resources of their home world. The main narrative, The Great Disillusionment, takes place in the early 20th century, in the summer, when an object thought to be a meteor lands on Horsell Common, near the narrator's home. It turns out to be an artificial cylinder that was launched towards Earth several months earlier. As Earth and Mars approached opposition, several Martians emerge and appear to struggle with Earth's gravity and unfamiliar atmosphere. When a human delegation approaches the cylinder waving a white flag, the Martians incinerate them using a heat ray. The crowd flees, and that evening a large military force surrounds the cylinder. The next day, the narrator takes his wife to safety in Leatherhead by means of a dogcart rented from the local pub landlord, but then turns back so he can return it. That night, he sees a three-legged Martian fighting machine tripod, armed with a heat ray and a chemical weapon, the poisonous black smoke. Tripods have wiped out the human soldiers around the cylinder and destroyed most of Woking. The narrator approaches his own house and finds the landlord dead in the front garden from inhaling black smoke. While keeping watch from an upper floor window, he offers shelter to an artilleryman who has fled after his company was wiped out attacking the cylinder. The narrator and the artilleryman try to escape back towards Leatherhead but are separated during a Martian attack between Shepperton and Weybridge. As refugees try to cross the River Wey, the army is able to destroy a tripod with concentrated artillery fire, and the Martians retreat. The narrator travels to Walton, where he meets an unnamed curate. Martians discharging heat rays in the Thames Valley. Illustration by Henrique Alvim Correa. The Martians attack again, and people begin to flee London, including the narrator's brother, who travels with his neighbor, Mrs. Elphinstone, and her sister-in-law to keep them safe. They reach the coast and buy passage to continental Europe on a makeshift fleet of refugee ships. Tripods attack, but a torpedo ram, HMS Thunderchild, destroys two of them before being destroyed itself. A third is either destroyed in the detonation of the ship's ammunition stores, or flees unseen in the resultant smoke, and the evacuation fleet escapes. Soon, all organized resistance collapses, and Martians roam the shattered landscape unhindered. The Earth under the Martians. At the beginning of Book 2, the narrator and the curate witness a Martian machine seizing people and tossing them into a metal carrier. The narrator realizes that the Martian invaders may have plans for their victims when a fifth Martian cylinder lands. Both men are trapped beneath the ruins of a manor house. The narrator learns from his observations how Martian anatomy works and how they use living creatures' blood to nourish themselves. The two men's relationship deteriorates as the curate slowly falls into despair, and when he tries to eat their remaining food supplies, the narrator knocks him unconscious. A passing Martian removes the curate's body, but the narrator escapes detection. The Martians abandon the cylinder's crater, and the narrator emerges from the collapsed house and heads for West London. En route, he finds Martian red weed everywhere, prickly vegetation spreading wherever there is abundant water, but notices that it is slowly dying. On Putney Heath, he encounters the artilleryman again, but soon abandons him when the man tries to convince him that they should keep fighting the Martians. Driven mad by his trauma, He finally attempts suicide by approaching a stationary fighting machine on Primrose Hill. To his surprise, he discovers that all the Martians have been killed by an onslaught of earthly pathogens, to which they had no immunity. The narrator suffers a nervous breakdown and is nursed back to health by a kind family. Eventually, he returns to Woking and discovers that his wife has survived. In the last chapter, he reflects on the Martian invasion, its impact on humanity's view of itself and the future, and the effect it has had on his mind. Please like and subscribe if you learned something.